Just don't ask any of my close friends and family because many of them disagree with that. After my stay in Odessa Medical Center in the intensive care unit, I then went to rehab. And for rehab, I went to the Baylor Institute of Rehabilitation in Dallas, Texas. And it was there that I met someone who would change my life. His name was Randy Snow. And Randy acted as my recreational therapist there at Baylor. And those of you that know him know he had a tremendous impact on many of us in the disabled community and is the greatest wheelchair athlete who ever lived. And boy, do I miss him. I sure miss him. We lost him in 2009. Not long after I arrived at Baylor, Randy and I were upstairs after hours in the PT room tossing a football around, talking about life and what to expect in life as a paraplegic, when he told me something that seared into my memory forever. He said, "Doug, I'm glad I'm in a wheelchair." What? Glad? How on earth could you be okay with this? How on earth could you be glad about it? And as he explained, I really didn't hear him. I remember thinking, I don't know what happened when that bale of hay fell on you, Randy, but there had to be some brain damage involved there too. I remember vividly awakening the next morning, though, and reflecting on that conversation. I remember the radio station I had my radio tuned to, 98.1 KZEW. They were playing White Snake, Here I Go Again. And at that very moment, I felt compelled to say a prayer, make a commitment and a promise. And I said, God, if you'll give me the courage and strength, I'll do whatever it takes to get my life as close to the life I had before my accident, after my accident. And that is a commitment that I still hold myself accountable to each and every day, 32 and a half years later. And there wasn't a time really when I had an epiphany one day and I understood what Randy meant. I think that was a process that occurred over time. Certainly a climactic moment in that process occurred about 8 years after my injury, when I physically went to the grave of the person who had run over me, and I forgave her. And I asked for forgiveness for all the bitterness and anger and resentment that I held in my heart. Because you see, what happened on that road that day, I like to call it the ultimate paradox. Absolutely unequivocally the worst day in my life. 32 and a half years later, it's been absolutely one of the best. I don't know if I'd be the man I am today. I don't know if I would have the attitude of gratitude that I have each and every day. I know I wouldn't have this perspective on life that I have that I feel is very valuable. I don't know if I would have worked over 20 years in education and influenced thousands of students. And I don't know if I'd be working with disabled Texans to help them find and retain and gain employment. And I know I wouldn't be as good at it. So for all those reasons, it was a good thing. And I would choose to embrace my life, my new life, as a challenge and an opportunity. Are you willing? You see, at the moment of that promise and that commitment on that hospital bed, at the moment that I went to that cemetery and gave forgiveness and asked for forgiveness, I was faced with that age-old choice that you and I make every day, that you and I all made this morning. What will my attitude be today? And make no mistake, it's a choice. And sometimes in the wake of terrible events and tragedy or difficult times, it's difficult to see it as a choice. But it is a choice. And I believe that attitude is the most essential element in achieving success and excellence above all others. It affects everything we do and everyone around us. It permeates every aspect and facet of our lives, and it is the basis and foundation of our character. And we get to choose our attitude every day. And our character, the 3 A's, That's what gets us through the bad times, through the adversity, and to the good times. Are you willing? You know, that reminds me of a story, and if you know me, you know that I'm reminded of stories easily. I love to fly fish. And in the late 1980s, I hadn't been fly fishing since my accident. So me and a group of my childhood friends decided we were going to go fly fishing. So we headed up to the San Juan River in northern New Mexico, Farmington, New Mexico area, and we were going to fish the quality waters of the San Juan where they flow out of Navajo Dam. It is world-class fly fishing, and we had a blast. 8 hours a day for 3 days straight. It was January, turned out to be beautiful weather, and we caught more fish than I can remember and imagine, and they were huge. Of course, they're a lot bigger now, years later, than they were when we actually caught them. But that's the way fish stories go, and there's an actual picture from that trip. And when the trip came to an end, the friend that I had traveled up there with, and I promise this is a true story, and you're not from West Texas unless you have a friend named Bubba. I was with Bubba, and we call him Big Bubba for a reason, about 6'5", 300 pounds. Me and Bubba decided we weren't quite ready to come back to reality yet. So we were going to take the long way home. So we decided to travel through Taos, New Mexico, because we wanted to see the mountains and the snow. And we get into the Taos Ski Valley Lodge late that night and check in. Get up early the next morning, go to the lodge main room, and we're enjoying a cup of coffee in front of this warm fire. And if you've ever been there, they have this beautiful picture window that looks out over the entire Taos Ski Valley. And as we sat there enjoying our coffee that morning in that warm fire, Bubba turns to me and says, "Doug, let's go skiing." Now, after 3 days of exhaustive fishing, there was one thing I was certain I didn't want to do that day, and that was get up on that snowy, cold mountain and ski. But Big Bubba's a persistent guy. And I soon found myself headed over to the equipment rental shed, but I'll be honest, the whole time I'm thinking, it's Taos. It's a small ski area. They don't have a disabled ski program or a disabled ski equipment. And we get into the building, and I approach the gentleman behind the counter, and I say, "You don't have a disabled ski program. You don't have any disabled ski equipment for rent, do you?" And he looks back at me and he says, "As a matter of fact, I do. We just got it in. It's brand new. You'll be the first to try it." Great, Bubba. What on earth have you got me into? He did look back at me and say, "You do know how to ski, right?" And I said, yes, I know how to ski. I've been skiing many times. I did fail to mention that it had been 10 plus years earlier when I was able-bodied. But you've seen a picture of the sit ski on the slideshow, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it's a sled. How hard can this be? It can be really hard. Anyway, we get outside the equipment rental shed, and we strap into our equipment. We head over to the lift, and as we get to the lift, I say to Bubba, "That lift is moving really fast. How am I going to get on that lift chair?" And Bubba says, "Doug, it's going to be no problem. When the lift chair comes around, you reach up and you grab it with your left hand, you boost up with your right, and I'll get you up the rest of the way in the lift chair. It's not going to be an issue. If there's a problem, the lift operator's going to slow it down, but if there's a problem, he'll stop." So it comes our time, and we rush out there and get in position, and I time it perfectly. And I reach up and grab that lift chair with my left hand, and I boost up with my right, and I don't even come close. And the lift operator doesn't stop. And I found myself turned on my side with the lift chair pushing me, and I suddenly became a paraplegic snowplow. And I'm plowing down that lift chair runway, and the snow is piling up, and it's covering the sit ski, and snow is getting everywhere, all in the sit ski, all in my clothes, in places I don't even want to imagine or tell you about. And I scream at Bubba, "He's not stopping, he's not stopping." And suddenly the strangest thing happened. Felt like I was dangling in midair, suspended. Because not only was the lift operator not stopping, for some insane reason, I was hanging on. And I found myself ascending the mountain, hanging on for dear life. And I can't repeat what I screamed at Bubba here, but I was very thankful at that moment that I had Big Bubba with me, because he quickly unzipped the sit ski and unhooked it and had a hold of my collar in my neck, and he plopped me down in the chair right beside him. My heart was beating 1,000 beats a minute, and I was panicked. And I turned to Bubba and I said, Bubba, if that sit ski doesn't come right up behind me, I'm going right back down the mountain and headed to the lodge, and I'm going to get another cup of coffee. And you can ski all day, but it's going to be without me. Unfortunately for me, the sit ski did make it right up the mountain. And before I knew it, we were both strapped in and headed down the mountain. And the wildest thing happened. Man, this was a blast. What fun. And if you've ever seen a sit ski, you have these two mini poles, and it's got a gutter that runs down the middle of it. It's about 4 inches wide, about a ½ inch deep at the back, and that's what you turn and cut with. And we're headed down that mountain, and I'm doing S-curves, and it's just, heart pumping, adrenaline rushing, freedom-filled speed like I hadn't felt since my accident.